morning, Warsaw. Today is Friday, 25th of August. It will be sunny all day with highs of 17 degrees Celsius or 62 degrees Fahrenheit for our American listeners. Sunrise will be at 5:51 a.m. and sunset at 7:57 p.m. We are on the 25th day of the Warsaw Uprising, and there are more atrocities happening, but not just in the city of Warsaw. Aren't there, Alina?
Yes, thanks for that, Philippe. I think Claire's going to start us off with this one, aren't you, Claire? Go for it.
It's day 25, the 25th of August 1944, which is best known in the annals of the Second World War for being the day that Paris is liberated. Paris was freed by the Western forces coming in through France after just under a week's battle. And the Poles recognise this, they hear the news on the radio and they broadcast a salute. That's Jan Nowak operating Błyskawica, the Polish lightning radio, the radio of the Warsaw Uprising. But as the people of Paris are toasting their liberators, of course, in Warsaw, the Poles continue to fight on. And I think they're feeling increasingly isolated and they're feeling the Germans begin to push through now. So, Alina, what's happening on the ground in Warsaw?
Yeah, thanks for that, Claire. There's a lot actually going on the ground today. Basically, we'll start with the reorganisation of the Mokotów district, so the district in the south. There's a new commander who arrives and he actually divides the whole district of Mokotów into much smaller areas that can be managed much easily. Mokotów now has a total of 5,500 soldiers on the ground, of which 3,000 are on the front line. We will come back to Mokotów, the district of Mokotów, in the next coming weeks because it will become important. What's happening otherwise? Well, in the city centre, the Germans are continuing to attack the Polish print works building, which is very important. Lots of propaganda materials are being published there. Later on, they'll have to be moved. There's constant bombardment from the air, which causes a lot of damage, especially within the old town. The John of God Hospital is under attack, and there's continuous fighting for that specifically. And of course, the Fiat plant. There's a battle going on for the Fiat plant as well. The old town are just beyond exhausted. The insurgents are constantly repelling further German attacks, so the situation on the ground isn't good. The other thing, there's continuous atrocities happening all the time, but I want to touch on one very specifically, and that's the pacification of the Hoynal Forest district. So the Wehrmacht soldiers decide that the civilians in the areas of two villages, Orzeszyn and Pilawa, have been helping forest troops. Therefore, they're going to go and pacify both the villages. Anyone who tried to run, especially men who tried to run to the forest and hide from the Germans, they were shot on the spot. All the houses that they knew that had supported the partisans were burnt down. All the village inhabitants from the Pilawa district, they were expelled from their homes and driven to a clearing behind a narrow gauge railway track. The Germans didn't know what to do with about 100 of these civilians, so they formed a column with them, which they then sent to, they had to walk to a sawmill in another village. And then those people were transported in wagons where they were gradually released. So as a result of the pacification of the village of Hoynal, 23 inhabitants lost their lives, including five brothers. So that's what we've got going on the ground. Roger, what are the Soviets doing? I mean, it's something we touched quite a lot on, but I'm still quite interested in knowing what the Soviets are up to.
Yeah, there's this ongoing sort of three-part wrestle over what to do about Warsaw between the leaders of the three great powers. It is ongoing today. I've said before that there was this attempt by Churchill to get a sort of common front with Roosevelt to present a united front against Stalin. Stalin had been very blunt in rejecting sort of calls to aid Warsaw, saying it was nothing to do with him and it was an adventure by sort of bandits and criminals on the ground and so on. All the usual rhetorical flourishes of a terse statement. And on this day, there's some more correspondence between Churchill and FDR, who are sort of desperate to, in a sense, find a way that they can placate Stalin and sort of, if not bring him on board, then at least use, Soviet bases, for example, to facilitate their own assistance to Warsaw. And this is the sort of origin of what would become the frantic missions which happened later in September. But Churchill on this day writes to Roosevelt saying, and I quote, "Uncle Joe's reply adds nothing to our knowledge," and he avoids the definite questions asked. He then goes on to suggest a reply, again trying to present that united front with Roosevelt to Stalin. And he says, "We are most anxious to send American planes from England. Why should they not land on the refueling ground which has already been assigned to us behind the Russian lines?" So he's saying that they want to send those aircraft so that they can do their drops over Warsaw, and then they can land and refuel and even resupply on Soviet territory, which is what Stalin up until this point is not permitting, rather than having to fly, drop over Warsaw, and then get all the way back either to the UK or to Brindisi, which of course is extremely difficult because they're right at the very limits of their range. So it's a perfectly reasonable suggestion, but as we'll see going forward, it's one that creates a lot of problems between the Allies. Later part of that message from Churchill or the proposed message to Stalin, is that again there's this sort of attempt to ease the situation, to sort of cast oil on the waters, as it were. He says, "We do not try to form an opinion about the persons who instigated this rising." So again, he's sort of backtracking about Warsaw and saying, well, we're not judging whether they're good or bad. We're just trying to support them because they're fighting the Germans. So again, he's sort of backtracking and trying to mollify Stalin as best as possible. So you can see that this relationship is an extremely difficult one, and Poland, as before, is proving to be the grit in that tripartite relationship. And it's all wasting time. It's all more correspondence going back and forth and drafting common letters and common approaches, which is wasting time, in which Warsaw is fighting and German advances are being made.
Well, this is a bit of a short one for you guys today. Don't worry, we will be back tomorrow with lots more content and what's going on. We really appreciate your support, and we appreciate that you have been giving us 5-star reviews. Do not forget, we are now on YouTube. So if you prefer YouTube as your listening platform, head over there, subscribe, and you can listen there as well too. So we will see you all tomorrow. Thank you so much, everyone.